Malcolm O'Kelly is with us. Malcolm, how are you getting on?
I am very well, thank you.
Will we get straight into that point then, since we just heard from Andy Farrell talk about it? What was your thought process, or what was going on in your mind when you saw them edging towards going for the post in that critical moment in the second half?
Yeah, I think we were looking, it was at 71 minutes on the clock. It's one of those ones we're able to look at it from hindsight, and from that perspective, you without a doubt they should have kicked the touch. How many opportunities they would get after that was hard to know. But then listen to Andy. I wasn't sure, was that 50-22 line out after that at that stage, and then they lost that line out, so there's still so many variables in play that that the decision was made to kick. Get your points, get closer to the target. But realistically, what did 3 points really give to them? A try at that stage will put them ahead. A penalty kick still, they still need another penalty kick, and that's only to draw. So arguably, what are you really gaining from taking the penalty? Not much. So I think decision probably should have, because they had backed themselves all game to go into touch, and they had scored a mauling try, and as a spectator, I think they should have kicked it into touch. But as Andy Farrell says, those guys are on the pitch. They know they've kind of got to a stage where they just want to get close, so they took their kick.
It's an interesting sort of conversation that happens at that moment, I suspect, not least because of the personalities involved. Joey Carberry starting his first Six Nations game. James Ryan in the captaincy role hasn't experienced that too often, so I'm sure it's something that they learn from. But if you're in James Ryan's position, Mal, if you're kind of a second row at that moment, are you saying to your out half, listen, we've got to try off the line out maul already, I back us here if you go for the corner, or does it not really matter what position you're playing in?
Hard to know. He obviously, there would be many occasions where they would back themselves to go. The heat of the moment, the points that it's very kickable points. Obviously were tempting, and they felt maybe that it wasn't at that stage where they were just going to get over. Maybe they felt that they would have to, take a kick and take another kick, and they will get another opportunity. It's hard to know, like the fact that he's a second row, I don't think makes too much difference. He's a leader. He probably, I don't know, Carberry probably said, look, I can get these, it's easy. We'll come back, and so they went with it. That's their decision. And you just have to go with it,
What did you make of Carberry's performance overall yesterday?
Yeah, I thought obviously there was a huge amount of pressure on him because he hasn't had a huge amount of game time. I thought he really got in. He got going. He got into the game. He found his feet pretty quickly. You had to find him pretty quickly. Once or twice he got caught man and ball, and I think in one particular occasion you always knew that with the French game plan would be to really pressurize the Irish attack and not let them get around them, and they did that. And I think Carberry at one stage showed a great touch to get the ball outside to Andrew Porter, and I think he showed that he's got all the skills, and there's a great confidence boost for the team, and I'd imagine for him as well, to get through the game in the manner that he did. He really looked very comfortable then. Certainly in the second half, looked really comfortable, and really led from the front, and implemented the strategy and the game plan really well. So Ireland looked really good in attack in the second half, and that was largely down to his ability to make the right decisions. So he did well, really well.
It definitely felt that the analysis at full time of Joey Carberry would have been a lot more glowing than, say, that the halftime analysis of Joey Carberry. So that's a positive sign. I suspect that he's already shown an aptitude for finding his way into a game, like his first Six Nations start, and there was already within a game an upward trajectory.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you could put like the two performances, the first half and the second half performance, very much mirrored Ireland's performance, as in Joey's performance mirrored Ireland's performance. And I don't know if that was just the French, just the opportunities that arose, but Ireland looked a little bit anxious in the first half. They were slightly overrunning, or they were slightly under a bit more pressure. Maybe it was the French defensive line coming up so hard, and the hits being big. But just the decisions seemed to be the wrong decisions. And then in the second half, the decisions and the thought process seemed to be much better. And they suddenly found their feet and their ability to, find soft shoulders and play the game that we've come to admire over the last 4 or 5 months.
Why was that, Malcolm? What was the change in your view? Why were they better able to handle that French challenge?
I don't know. I think there's, I suppose they have to. There's a belief element there that. There is obviously there's a timing thing. There's being able to live in the with the noise and the stadium and what it brings. Like that was a big away performance, and it's sometimes not as easy to find your kind of your place or your confidence where you can just feel comfortable. Maybe it took a little time. Maybe it took a chat from Andy just to kind of to relax them and calm them down a bit, and make them remember what they're trying to achieve. But certainly, whatever the factors were, they came out in the second half and just. Maybe it was the fact that they went down down. At one stage was 22-7. Maybe they thought, the game is over. I can remember us being in similar situations against the French where the game is all but lost, and then suddenly we find ourselves, and maybe it's the French just loosen up a tiny bit. They've been known to do that in the past, and it just gives us the ability or the opportunity to get into our game. But whatever the case was, they certainly found their feet and looked really good. And the manner of their recovery was fantastic, and the speed in which they did it, and the French actually couldn't live with them. So that was very heartening.
So do you think there was a sense of we're 15 points down, the pressure is off? Is that kind of what happened?
Well, that's certainly one way to look at it. I know that's been the case in my time, but probably for different reasons. But I think there's so little in, and the level of complexity in their game plan, and it requires, so many players running good lines. That they can easily be overrun, and perhaps they just need their first few opportunities that they had. They did overrun them, or they didn't quite get it right due to the pressure that was applied by the French, and maybe it just took them time to understand and to adapt. And then the second half, they just found those opportunities. I think one particular spark, I think, was a Tyg Furlong plays that kind of loop pass back to Joey, and that just opened them up. And perhaps it just needed it to fall to the right fella at the right time to run the right line, whereas maybe previously they were just pushing it. They wanted to get around and they just couldn't. So Yeah, it could just be that fact that it was just the opportunity that arose. But they took them. They took their opportunities, which were great at that stage. Like they were back in the game with half an hour to go. And they ended up having another couple of opportunities that unfortunately didn't work for them. And like that's all you want from the team themselves, is to be in the game with a few minutes to go, with 10 minutes to go. You want to be in the hunt. It's not always going to go your way, but they certainly gave themselves an opportunity to win that match.
When you analyse then the direction this Ireland team has gone over the last little while, stylistically it sounds like you're very much on board with this being a way that will beat France on another day, that maybe there was just a couple of things that they need to tweak. There was maybe a little bit of experience would have helped them, but certainly the way they're going about it is a way to beat this France team. Would I be right in saying that that's your summation on it?
Yeah, sure. They could. I think they could. Perhaps if they're playing at home, they would beat them. I think the home away factor is always, we always talk about it in rugby, but obviously if you look to France 23, you won't be playing them at home. So yeah, there is. I would be hugely confident in what way they're going. It's hard to know what the result will be of this, but they're certainly going in the right direction. They're challenging the gain line. They're finding soft shoulders, regardless of who they're playing against, and they did it against France, which was fantastic. Like France in Stade de France are a really tough team to break down. And they did it on several occasions. So it was really impressive on occasions, and you just felt for them that they did have a couple of opportunities that maybe on another day, would have borne fruit and would have given them the win. So it was, they're definitely going in the right direction. Like they're like, to be honest, the French attack bar, they had a couple of good moments and they were opportunistic, but in phase play, really didn't offer that kind of same detail and quality in attack. They relied on Pinot and Dupont and Entomac for their, like, the absolute, that pure quality and flair, to find them a soft shoulder. And Ireland, to be fair to Ireland, they may not have the individual quality players like that, but because they work so well together as a team, they're able to live with that team. So it was very impressive. And who knows, they might unearth a couple of more players before the World Cup as well. So they're doing everything in the right way, and so I think the management must be applauded for that.
I think it's a pretty well-known fact that Joey Carberry is probably going to start against Italy in a couple of weeks' time. If he plays well in that game, Al, are you then starting him for the next game and potentially getting him into a position where he's got to start in Twickenham?
Johnny's the captain of the team, so I'd say they'll just judge Johnny and see when he's right to come back in. The fact that Joey did so well gives you great confidence that you can put him in for the next game. And then sitting on behind him, then you've got Jack Carty, who it was very hard for him to come in the last few minutes and try and win a match. So
was that the right call, Mal? Do you think they should have taken Carberry out of things?
Well, I suppose they were just sticking to their plan, that they wanted to blood Jack Carty a bit. I think it was a huge ask of him, to kind of come on at that stage, find the pace of the match and deliver something. Probably on I think on another day you'd just let Joey finish it off, but maybe that's not the way Andy works. He wants to have everyone inclusive, everyone gets a bit of a run, and that's more important than the result. So yeah, it was a big call to take him off, and it's not one that I don't think Jack Carty, I don't think he won the match or lost the match, or had he thrown a miraculous skip pass, it wouldn't have won the match anyway. It was kind of it was the last play of the game. It was a throw the dice. It was the chances of winning that at that stage were very, very slim. So yeah, was it the right decision? Probably not, but he's probably sticking to his guns on that.
When it comes to some of the things that Ireland will analyse from this French experience, I'm sure how they coped with that Sean Edwards defence is going to be one of the big talking points, and the way it was executed with a bunch of very powerful players in that French pack. So what lessons will they take from that when it comes to, say, looking at the power that England are likely to bring? Because that is probably going to be a talking point in the build-up to that game, just like it was last week. Yeah,
like what France brought to it is they had a shooter, didn't they? So Dupont would come out of the line, and it's something that the French have used before. You have a flyer, they're flying out of the line, look to try and take that player who's trying to go around behind. But it's not possible each time. It's kind of like that can only happen if you're really well set, and then that's probably not the time to go around the team either. But yeah, like every team is gonna analyse Ireland, and they're gonna come up with different ways to try and stop Ireland from getting around the corner. So it's probably an awareness thing to realise, look, that we need to keep evolving as a team. And this happened under Joe Schmidt. They used the Sexton loop, and then eventually teams figured it out, and they closed them down. But now they've managed to find another way to use it. So and have more people playing that loop pass, so it's kind of like a surprise. It's kind of opposition don't realize who's actually going to do it and when they're going to do it. So teams are going to become aware of that and are going to understand that they need to be more awake and figure out ways of stopping it. So it's just the evolvement of the game. But I think Ireland are very much in the forefront of that in attack at the moment. I think they're leading the way, which is to be applauded as well.
You've touched on it already, the uncertainty maybe around the line out and that big call at the end of the game that you wouldn't be sure whether or not that they would actually get the points from it. So where is the Ireland set piece at on the evidence of yesterday? Obviously France put them under severe pressure at the line out even before Kelleher went off. So what's your read on how they performed in that area?
Yeah, I think the lineup was a bit disappointing for them. They lost a few. And again, I've been in that same position and lost similar lineouts, and it's very hard to cope with, and you have to just take it on the chin that they didn't go as well, and especially the one they had from the 50-22 from Tyke Burns, unbelievable kick. I think that one will hurt. Arguably if they catch that, they maul that down, and they're just in a great position to get something. But they come out of that with absolutely nothing, and then the game turns against them a bit. So yeah, look, lineouts are not a given. There's no guarantee you're gonna win your lineout. You make a call, you run through the movement, and you expect the defence to do a certain thing, and they either buy it or they don't buy it. So on another day, the lineout works perfectly. So they just have to keep believing in what they're doing Like Paul will obviously run through what happened and look at triggers and figure out, if they can improve on anything. And as I said earlier, it's evolving. So the lineout is evolving, their game is evolving. Nothing stays the same. They can't afford to, because the analysis that other teams will do. So they'll just have to, lick their wounds and take it on the chin and move on to the next one.
Yeah, they certainly will. All right, Malcolm O'Kelly, great stuff. Thanks a million for that.
Thanks. No worries, Owen.
Cheers. Malcolm O'Kelly there on the line, reflecting on France 30, Ireland 24 in the Six Nations at Stade de France yesterday. We are turning our attention after the break to the Premier League, because we've got live commentary of Burnley against Liverpool, and we will get Brian Kerr's preview next.
Off the Ball on News Talk. Have you ever wondered why we laugh?
Now, this is the type of laughter that chimpanzees do.
Or if you can really die of a broken heart?
It's the brain that says, oh, that's painful.
Join Professor Luke O'Neill on the Show Me the Science podcast